Hi, my name is Christian, and I'm going to go over the impressions that I got from the massing at Solus of the Wave 2 on the Rebel perspective. And the first ship I'm going to go over is the MC-80 Assault Cruiser, which is essentially the Mon Calamari cruiser that is Home 1 in the movies that Akbar has. So there's two versions of this. There's the Assault and the Command Cruiser. The Assault and Command are relatively similar. The Command has four red dice on either side and two blue, and the Command has three blue and three red on either side. And the Assault Carrier has 3 squadrons, and the Command Cruiser has 4 squadrons, which is pretty good. The upgrade slots are also different for each one. The Assault Cruiser has 2 defensive slots and no offensive slots, while the Command Cruiser has 1 offensive and 1 defensive, and they both have a turbo laser and a ion cannon one. What surprised a lot of people about this ship, including myself, is one, it only goes up to speed 2, which isn't disastrous because at least it does 1 tick and 1 tick, so it's more maneuverable than what a Victory Star Destroyer was. And for my assault frigates, I almost always kept them at speed 2 anyway, but sometimes you're going to want to get into speed 3, especially when you have that Imperial Star Destroyer bearing down on you, so that's unfortunate that it only has speed 2. But something that really disappointed me, and as soon as Fantasy Flight released that photo of the preliminary one, it doesn't have a gunnery team slot, and that is something that is incredibly useful on the assault frigate. The fact that you can fire from that side hull zone twice, it just makes it so much better. So I'm really going to miss that. But as I mentioned before in the massing in the Imperial video, I saw the Rebel player use the MC-80 and the MC-30 to really effectiveness and was able to completely destroy an Imperial Star Destroyer in pretty short order. So, that 4 red dice on the side, that's great, especially on the assault cruiser. So you want to keep your enemies at long range, and if you have Akbar, you're going to be shooting with 6 red dice instead of just the 4. So, that's a lot of firepower coming from this ship, but essentially you need to stay at long range because that 2 blue die that you pick up at medium range isn't worth it when you think about how much more blue die are going to be shot at you. It has the exact same defense tokens as an Imperial Star Destroyer: 2 redirects, a brace, and a containment. Containment prevents face-up damage from critical attacks, as mentioned before. So obviously the assault one is going to be one that's going to be more for assault, more for fighting, and the command cruiser is going to be obviously much more common as using as a hangar, much more as using for its squadron abilities because it can carry 1 more squadron and it can carry an offensive upgrade, which includes the previously mentioned boosted comms, which are great. They're really useful. They're only 4 points. If you're going to do a carrier build, make sure you include it. That's definitely a great upgrade for one that you're going to use primarily as a carrier build. The admiral that comes into the Rebel side for this ship is Admiral Akbar, obviously from the Return of the Jedi.
Do not say it's a trap.
No, he is not a trap. He is a great ship. He's a great admiral. So before a friendly ship's attack step, it may choose to attack from only its left and right hull zones in this round. If it does, it may add 2 red dice to its attack pool while attacking from the ship. So that means if it's firing from either one of its hull zones and only from its side hull zones, it can add an extra 2 dice per attack. So for the assault frigate, if you have that gunnery team, you could fire from your left hull zone twice, and each time you give yourself 2 extra red dice. So that's essentially having 2 enhanced armaments on all your ships. Think about it that way. The 38 points is definitely a bargain. Now the only trick is like you have to fire from only your side hull zones, so you're not going to be using your front or rear arcs at all if you want to keep that red dice. But so obviously don't have him on a fleet of Nebulon Bs, which I don't know why anyone would ever fly Nebulon Bs now with Wave 2 out. I've always been a little bit biased against Nebulon Bs, but Akbar is the anti-Nebulon B Admiral. Do not have him on that. 38 points, he's expensive, but he's definitely going to get a lot of use in this deck with Wave 2. The first upgrade is Cluster Bombs. It is a defensive upgrade, which, the Assault can have 2 of them. It's kind of limited. It's 5 points, so it's relatively cheap, but after a squadron performs an attack against you, even if you are destroyed, you may discard this card. So you don't use it, you don't spend it, you discard it. So you can only do it once, but you get to roll 4 blue dice, and that squadron suffers 1 damage for each hit and critical on there. So, you have like a 75% chance of doing damage on each one of the 4 dice, so you're probably going to do 3 damage, but it's 5 points for doing 3 damage just one time against one ship. So, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I don't see that getting a huge amount of play just because it's a discard, and most people don't like discards. The next one that I talked about before, the Imperial deck, SW7 ion batteries. While attacking, each of your unspent blue accuracy icons adds 1 damage. That's definitely a very useful card, especially for the command version of it, where it has those 3 blue dice on the side. For 5 points, you may want to put it on a Corvette B. For 5 points, that's a pretty good upgrade. The new Rebel officer is Walix Blissex. While you activate, you may discard this card to recover 1 of your discarded defense tokens. It's 5 points, but I could see him being relatively useful just because with all the new ship upgrades out there and the new turbo laser upgrades that force you to discard 1 of your defense tokens, I could see you really wanting to get that brace token back on. The 2 other officers are a navigation officer and a wing commander. That essentially allows you to change your command dial to those whenever it comes up. So that's actually pretty good. If you do have that card, you essentially should never put a squadron command on that ship, because you can always change it back to a squadron command if you want. So that way, it essentially only gives you 3. It limits the number of choices you have from 4 to 3, depending on the type. So it's definitely pretty useful, especially for new players. Just being able to give your ship that more flexibility is definitely pretty useful. Projection experts, you get to transfer some of your shields to a neighboring ships. I can see that getting some use, especially if you have one of your ships way out at long range, either assault or command. If you have it out from the main fight, you may want to be giving extra shields to some of your other ships. So I can see that getting some play. So there are 3 title upgrades for this cruiser, and each one of them is pretty useful. There's the Defiance, which is only 5 points, and while attacking a ship that's already been activated, you get to add 1 more dice of any color to your attack pool. So I believe that's for both of your attacks if you're firing from 2 different hull zones. But the fact that you can just add an extra black dice if you want. Obviously, you don't want this ship to go first. You want this to attack ships that have already gone before, but for 5 points, it's essentially an enhanced armament at half the price. The next upgrade is Home 1. It's 7 points, so it's a little bit more. And while another friendly ship at distance 1 to 5 is attacking, it may change 1 dice to an accuracy icon. But the biggest problem I have with this is that it doesn't affect the ship itself. It's another friendly ship. So for 7 points, I could see it being useful if you have one command assault, one command vessel with your admiral and then a bunch of smaller ships. Maybe it'll be more useful, but I'm not a huge fan of Home 1 just because it doesn't affect the ship itself. And the last one is the Independence, which is whenever you do your squadron command, if the squadrons do not attack that turn, they can move at speed 4. So essentially, this is the B-Wing carrier, because B-Wings can only move at speed 2, and the fact that they can effectively double the speed and move up closer to the battlefield at speed 4 is definitely going to be very useful. Now, you don't have to move them at speed 4 and take away their attack, but it just gives you that opportunity. So those are the 3 title upgrades for the MC80. I definitely think Defiance is going to get the most use, but the other ones are pretty good. And the last upgrade for this ship is the Slave Turrets, which we've already talked about. You can only do 1 attack, but you get to give yourself an extra red die. You know what? For the MC80, it makes more sense than since it doesn't have the gunnery team. Maybe you are only going to be attacking from that one side arc, so you can go ahead and give yourself the extra red dice. But since it's a modification, 6 points, it's essentially a cheaper enhanced armament. Alright, so the second new Rebel ship is the MC-30, and there are 2 versions of it. There's the Torpedo Frigate and the Scout Frigate. The only difference between them is one has black dice with blue dice, and the Scout Frigate has black dice with red dice. So, one's more medium and close range. The other one is a combination of long and close range. This is definitely a very interesting ship. It goes up to speed 4, but it's not very maneuverable at speed 4. But, it's pretty good at speed 3. And it has very high shields. It has 3 on the front side, in the front and both sides, and 2 in the back. But it only has a whole value of 4. So it definitely has great shields. It has 4 defense tokens, 2 evades, and 2 redirects. So it's going to be able to stay alive for a little while, but once you punch through its shields, then it's completely done for. Between the Torpedo Frigate and the Scout Frigate, I would probably lean towards the Scout Frigate, just because, particularly if you have them with Admiral Akbar, you get the 2 extra red dice if you attack on your side, but he doesn't give you 2 red dice if you attack at long range. You have to be attacking, and then you add those red dice. I could see Akbar going well with the Scout Frigate version, but if you have one of the other admirals, maybe you'll use one of the other ones. The new admiral for this deck is General Rikan. When a friendly ship or friendly unique squadron is destroyed, it remains in the play area and treated as if it's not destroyed until the end of the status phase. So you would think this is like a really weird defeatist card, but it's relatively expensive at 30 points. But if you have a large swarm of Corellian corvettes or these new torpedo frigates, you can just charge it right up in front of them, attack, and maybe you'll die the next turn. But until the end of the round, that ship is still there. So even if it blows up, it may ram into you, and who cares if you're going to get extra damage by ramming? You're already dead, but you get to do extra damage to the other ship. So this also affects named squadrons only, unique squadrons. So no generic A-Wing or X-Wing, these are your hero units. So if you're going to use this Admiral, obviously only pair him with hero ships like the Millennium Falcon or Luke Skywalker or something like that. The new officer for this deck is Lando Calrissian. Fortunately, he's 4 points, but again, it's a discard, so I don't think he's going to be getting that much play. There's like, while defending during the spend defense token, you may discard this card and force the attacker to re-roll one or more dice of your choice. So he's essentially a gambler. Like for 4 points, you're just gonna hope that he doesn't. You get to re-roll and hope that he doesn't kill you. There are 2 new title upgrades for this one. And the first one that I love so much is the Foresight. And I got to see this in action during the Massing at Solus. But for 8 points, which is relatively expensive, but you get to resolve. When you resolve the evade token, it affects 2 dice instead of just 1. So at long range, you get to cancel out 2 dice and not just 1. When you're at medium range, you get to re-roll 2 dice instead of just 1. So especially when you're going against an Imperial Star Destroyer that's rolling up to 8 dice against you, this is a good way to take away as much damage as possible. And in addition, as a bonus, I would get this card even if it was just increasing your evade tokens. But when you do your redirect, you can choose an additional hull zone, additional adjacent hull zone to suffer the damage. So it's essentially like a cheaper version of advanced projectors, but it's included in the title card. So I consider that an auto include if you're going to get this ship. I could see it pairing amazingly well with Mon Mothma. If you have a fleet of Corvettes and these new MC-30s, they could be really devastating. And that Foresight paired with Mon Mothma is going to make it particularly long-lived since you have 2 evade tokens, so you're more likely to be able to use them. The other one is the Domination. While defending during the spend defense token step, you may discard a defense token to cancel 1 attack die. So essentially, it's turning all your tokens into evade tokens. So if you have someone that's attacking you, and maybe your shield's already down, so you're not going to use your redirect, well, you can go ahead and discard those defense tokens, and they cancel 1 die. Honestly, this isn't as useful, in my opinion, as the Foresight one, but if you're about to go down, maybe this will buy you some extra time. One of the new upgrade cards for this deck is the Assault Proton Torpedoes. And whenever you get a black critical, you just deal an immediate face-up damage card to the defender. So you still count that black critical as a 1 damage effect when you're calculating your total, but you get to just do an immediate face-up damage. So it's like cheaper. It's only 5 points, so it's cheaper than assault concussion missiles, which cause 1 damage to a decent hull zone. But this way, you get to do an immediate critical damage, and if you pair him with Dama, you'll be able to choose a particularly painful one. The last unique upgrade card for this one is the Turbo Laser Reroute Circuits. While attacking, you may spend, so not discard, but spend, so you just flip it over, 1 defense token to change a red die to a face with a critical or a double hit icon. That's pretty useful, especially if you're like the last ship that's going to go this turn and you know no one else is going to attack you. Go ahead and flip those defense evade tokens over and make your hits particularly damaging. Obviously, for this one, you only want to put it on the scout frigate and not... But actually, this would... Well, you wouldn't have a evade token on the MC-80, but this could be this could work well with the assault frigate as well. So for 7 points, It's a little only in certain circumstances, but it's definitely, I think, going to get plenty of play. And the last thing to go over is the new rogues for the for the Rebel players. The first one is Jan Ors, who I don't know how many of you played the Jedi Knight games, but she was the co-pilot for Caden in the not Caden. Oh shit.
Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle Katarn. Yes, thank you. Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, Jedi Outcast. They're great games, and you can get them on Steam for super cheap. Unfortunately, they're not canon anymore, but they were great stories.
Yeah, which is such a shame.
Yeah, Jedi Knight Outcast is particularly great, and the graphics aren't, amazing, but it was a great game But either way, I think they'll come back in some way. The fact that they're including these in these decks, I think they'll go ahead and. So she's essentially a support vessel. She has a counter 2 for herself, and she provides intel so that the enemy squadrons around you act as heavy so they don't engage you. And friendly squadrons around her can use her defense tokens. So you can give out your braces to multiple ships that way. 19 points. I think if you're going to have like a heavy B-wing or, maybe like a bomber wave going in through, I think she'll be pretty useful. So then you have Dash's Outrigger. He's definitely an air superiority fighter, like 4 blue die, 4 speed, 6 health. He has 1 black dice and a bomber, so you can use that, but just being a regular rogue is definitely pretty helpful. Havoc, as I mentioned before in the actual game at the Massing and Solace, I saw how damaging Havoc could be. A blue critical when going against a ship, if you get a blue critical, you can discard one of the enemy's defense tokens. So obviously, if you're going up an Imperial Star Destroyer, take away that brace, and you'll never be able to have your damage for the rest of the game. And hopefully that rest of the game isn't that long for that ship. So 6 health, 3 speed, a blue and a black. He's essentially a bomber, and he has grit. So he's not prevented from moving while you're engaged with only 1 squadron, which goes back to the title upgrade for the missile frigates that engage ships up to 2. So I definitely think you're going to see a lot of Havoc. And then Han Solo with the Millennium Falcon, pretty expensive at 26 points, but he's pretty damaging. He rolls with 2 blue and 2 black against squadrons. He rolls a blue and a black against ships. He's not a bomber, so those criticals won't count. But he's a rogue, so he gets to move and attack. And with his text ability, is during the ship phase, he activates as if it was from a squadron command. So whenever you want in your turn, when your first ship goes, you can just have him go as if he was activated, and he gets to essentially shoot first and go move at speed 3 and attack, and he's already gone. So it's definitely a pretty useful card. I'm really looking forward to Wave 2 combination of the game I saw in the pictures I'm going to post here. Admiral Akbar was with combination of Defiance was able to unleash 7 red die against the enemy after Nim had taken away the brace token, and then the scout frigate was able to open up with another 5 red die due to concentrate fire. The Rebels are all about long range side arcs, red die, and they're not as accurate as the closer ones, but if you stay away, you can keep yourself alive. So definitely looking forward to Wave 2. As soon as I get it, I'll go into more in depth once I start playing with it. But for now, these are the impressions that I've seen from online and from Massing at Solus. So thank you and goodbye.